So, a little aside. Inevitably, every boot camp, we get asked, why don't you put more comments in your code? Was anybody wondering that already? It doesn't take long sometimes. Well, remember how we said we're big nerds about making readable code. So to us, if it's necessary to comment, that's a clue to us. We should probably think harder about how we wrote this code, because that means it can't be understood at a glance. So do you think render list item? I know. So given a flick, render a list item out of that flick. Does that tell you anything that you can't get by reading the method signature? Render list item flick? Yeah.
What if I forget what data set does?
Then you need to read the documentation for JavaScript. I mean, it's a language feature, right? You can't document every language feature. So basically, I would say, in a case like that, if you just plain don't know part of the API, it's the reader's responsibility to look up the documentation. If you want to do it in your own notes in a class, sure, by all means, comment away. But most things you do should be understandable enough that you don't need to comment much. And if you do find that you need to, it might be a clue that this could be rewritten in a more readable way. So when we do break things down into ever smaller functions, we do it in such a way that each function really only does one thing. It has one responsibility, and then we make sure that we name the function after that responsibility. It's a verb telling us exactly what it does. And we don't want it to do anything other than what that says. Similarly, your variable names. Make them good. Don't just use like X and N all over the place. Like if you have a number, to me, only if it's the index of an array is it acceptable to make it like a one-letter thing. You can make it I because that's universal in programming. Everybody does that. So that's fine. But if I have like the number of students, I'm not going to say n equals 24. I would say something like student count equals 24, right? Give them good variable names, and then people don't have to wonder what the heck that number is. And for heaven's sake, don't just throw 24 in there somewhere. Why, don't have magic numbers. So that's kind of a very quick explanation. When we break this thing down a little bit, or go into our next app, it might be a little clearer. The other big piece of this is your commit messages. Oh yeah, go for it.
The other problem with comments is if you change your code over time, which frequently does happen either by you or someone on your team, you don't always remember to change the comment. So over time, it's more likely that your comment is going to lie about what that function actually does, because things will change underneath it, and then the comment doesn't get changed. And so people read the comments and expect to get a description of what's actually going on in that function. It may not be accurate anymore.
That is a very good point, and a very real problem. So most of the time we're consultants. We join existing development teams for a short time to help them get something done faster, for example. And sometimes we get there and we have to read their existing code to figure out what the stuff does. And sometimes we'll read a comment and we'll be like, okay, it says it does this thing, but it sure doesn't look like that. And it takes us a long time to see whether we're crazy or whether, yeah, the comment is lying to us. And the other big piece of the puzzle, like I said, is your commit messages. So if you do it in very small atomic commits, each of which accomplishes one thing, then you can also look through all these changes were to do this thing. And there's even a command in Git called git blame that can show you which commit each individual line of code came from. And yes, as its name suggests, it'll also tell you who did it. But the point is, sometimes you read code, even code you wrote, and whether there's a comment or not, you just can't figure out why the heck that thing is there. So you try to figure out when it got added, because maybe since then something else has changed, and now this isn't really accomplishing anything. So nice atomic commits help you track those things down and find out whether it really is safe to delete this thing. Because how many times have we been in a situation where we're like, I'm pretty sure we can delete this thing, but I don't know. Maybe it's being used somewhere we can't find. Yeah, Alex.
So what if so as far as like commits and like messages saying like, describing what happened, what if I just did a really large amount of code and it's like, it got something done, but then I realized, oh, I have this little small thing and this other thing that has nothing to do with this giant chunk of, should I wait and commit the big giant chunk and then do that and then commit again, or can I just do it all in one commit?
I would be inclined to commit the small thing first.
So I would delete everything that I did.
No. You just only stage part of it. You only stage part of it. So we've been writing git add dot every time, right? But you can only you can choose only to stage certain lines even within a single file. Now we haven't done that. That requires an interactive add that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about right now. But yeah, you can totally do that thing. I do it all the time. You realize you've basically started a whole separate task, or that you forgot to commit after you finished the last thing. Yeah, you can totally do that. So anyway, I'm not saying you should never add comments. I'm just explaining why we tend not to. We tend to err on the side of writing very short, readable functions with clear names and good atomic commit messages.